I know that generally on this channel, I usually play strategy games, but every once in a while, I like to play something a little bit different, kind of mix things up. I do dip into RPGs every once in a while, and even every once in a while, I get into other things like, for example, shooters. Now, I don't really play third-person shooters very often, and I wanted to kind of try something new here. So when a couple of other YouTubers approached me about playing a series that you may or may not have seen already showing up on the channel now, it's a co-op playthrough of the new Space Marine game here, Warhammer 40K, then I kind of jumped at the opportunity because, like I said, chance to try something new. Now, there's usually a couple of things that I look for in games more than any other. I mean, there's a lot of different things that make games fun, but the two things that I keep going back to over and over again are challenge and storytelling. And I'm a big fan of the Warhammer fantasy universe, but I really don't know much at all about Warhammer 40K. And this seems like a really good opportunity to learn more about the lore, and of course also find out what kind of a story this game has to tell. So this is going to kind of be my first impressions. The footage that you're seeing in the background right now is actually from earlier today, because I can't play this game right now because my hand is so sore from overplaying it. And the reason why is not just that there's a lot of really frenetic button mashing and clicking, and it gets really, as you can see on the screen right now probably, it gets really fast paced, but also just the intensity of the game. There's very few games that I've ever played that I feel like match this level of intensity. So it may not be for everyone, but anyway, I think you could probably tell from the fact that I'm having to take a break from playing because my hand is so sore, my thumb in particular. That ought to tell you something about how I feel about this game. So I want to kind of dig into it just a little bit because I think there are some other people who probably like the same thing about games that I do. I know not everybody would feel this way, but I think it's at least worth sharing because I think some people will. So anyway, I'm going to talk first of all about the storytelling aspect of it. I've been really impressed with it. It's not exactly just the two-dimensional characters that I expected and, just kind of the thoughtless violence nonstop. I mean, there's plenty of nonstop violence, don't get me wrong, but there's genuinely a story involved, and there's a couple of people that you get to know. There's interactions between them. There's a little bit of humor. There's a little bit of drama going on. So I think it's cut above what I was expecting. So that's really good. And of course, the world is incredibly bleak. For people who are already familiar with the Warhammer 40K, you already know this, but I knew it was going to be dark. I didn't realize just quite how dark it is going to be. So again, not going to appeal to everybody, but for, I think, this type of a game, the theme really fits very well. So I think they get an A+ as far as I'm concerned, at least from what I've experienced so far. Now, we're not quite halfway through the campaign yet, so there's a lot more to learn. So this is really, like I said, more of a first impressions. So from a storytelling standpoint, I'm really quite pleased by it. The second thing, though, that I wanted to get into is the difficulty. And we are playing this on Angel of Death. And I'm going to take a minute and just kind of pitch why I think everybody should at least give this a try. Not necessarily do what we did, which is to start with Angel of Death, because, yeah, kind of maybe a glutton for punishment when you're actually running through the tutorial in Angel of Death mode, because it's very unforgiving even in the tutorial, what they call the prologue, I think. Part of the campaign. It's very unforgiving. You will die unquestionably, but to me, this is how you get better as a player. But that's not really the one and only reason why I would suggest playing it. I know that other reviewers have come out and said that the biggest grievance with this game is that it, by the way, you can see cinematic is starting up here, and really good cinematics in this game. Quite impressed with them. It's sort of, for those of you who have watched like the Baldur's Gate series on this channel, or probably have played Baldur's Gate on your own. I think it certainly rivals BG3 in terms of the level of the cinematics. Completely different feel, of course, but hopefully you know what I'm saying. Anyway, back to what I was talking about. So the Angel of Death difficulty and how it relates to what people are considering to be the biggest flaw of this game, which is it's not really long enough. There are, I want to say, maybe 7 missions in the campaign, which doesn't really sound like a lot. And then, moreover, there are operations that you run, which is how you improve your gear and I want to say well, you pick a class. I don't really know quite what the character progression is, but anyway, so there's the 7 campaign missions and there's the operations, and the 6 operations that this game has launched with are the sort of thing that you're going to have to repeat over and over again as you level your stuff up. So I can understand why that is fairly unappealing. I will say a great way to extend the length of your campaign is going to be to play on a higher difficulty. To me, I've always felt like the easiest way for me to get bored with a game is for it to become too easy. So I tend to ramp up the difficulty in almost all the different types of games that I play. But that, it gets frustrating at times when it gets super challenging. Sometimes you got to take a break as the frustration gets a little bit too much. But overall, I feel like the sense of accomplishment, the sense of satisfaction and exhilaration that you can get from succeeding at, in this case, the highest difficulty being called Angel of Death, I think it really is worth it to go through some periods of frustration, because you come out on the other side with that greater sense of appreciation and of satisfaction for what you've accomplished. So anyway, all that being said, I really consider that difficulty for any game, not just this one, difficulty is a really important aspect of getting the full appreciation. And we're paying money for these things, so why not maximize the amount of time that we get out of them? Why not make it feel like we're getting our money's worth by extending the length of time that it takes to get through the campaign, for example. So that's really one thing that I wanted to get out there. Is I really think it's something that everybody should just at least try, is the Angel of Death. I think you might be surprised. It looks completely overwhelming at first when you first start playing it, but it does, this is how you get better. And, trust me, you will definitely improve as a player. Sorry for bumping the microphone there. You will improve as a player when you play on this for any length of time at all. So what feels kind of impossible at first, but usually before not too much longer becomes something that you can actually accomplish and feel a real sense of reward out of it. So okay, I think I've probably rambled on enough about that. The action, you could see from the footage here, it's pretty intense, probably even on the lower difficulties. I would imagine it would still be fairly intense. So highly recommended from that standpoint. Like I said, the story, quite good. Overall, yeah, I'm really, really pleasantly surprised with my experience in this game so far. It is expensive. I can absolutely understand people who might want to wait for it to go on sale or wait for more content to come out. I did want to mention there is a roadmap where they're going to be adding more content in the future, so I'm kind of already looking forward to that. So yeah, really a lot to like here. It is definitely a challenging game. It is definitely a different experience for me than the types of games that I normally play. But like I said, I kind of like to, I generally play a lot of strategy, but sometimes it's just really nice to kind of break out of the mold and try something different. And for me, this has been really a breath of fresh air. So, all right, anyway, let me know what you guys think. I'm kind of hoping that I get some interesting feedback from folks, because like I said, there are probably people who know the lore a lot better than I do. Well, that for sure. People who are better and more experienced at these types of games. So I can't really exactly say how this compares to most of the other third-person shooters that are out there. I did play a fair amount of Remnant, and I quite liked that. I never kind of got into the whole Dark Souls phenomenon, and believe it or not, I have Elden Ring on my wish list, but I've never actually bought it. So I haven't really tried that. Something probably kind of similar to I shouldn't say real similar to this, obviously, so there's some vast differences. But anyways, just mentioning basically that my experience with this genre overall is fairly limited. So I'm kind of curious what other people think in terms of how this stacks up to some of the other titles out there. But like I said, I'm real impressed with it. I can understand people who might want to wait for one reason or another, but overall, I really consider this to be a highly recommended game. So anyway, please feel free to mention your thoughts in the comments below. And thanks so much for listening to me ramble on for a little while. And hopefully I will see you in the next video.